Ladies and gentlemen, the SUSE and Rancher community proudly presents Front Row at KubeCon.
Hello and welcome to Front Row at KubeCon. My name is Robert Serchia, and I am joined by our special guest, Sarah Novotny from Microsoft. Sarah, thank you for showing up. Thank you for coming.
Happy to talk.
How's the experience so far for you? One of the big conferences post-COVID.
Post-COVID. It is still a little uncomfortable to be in large groups of people. I definitely am feeling that. Mm-hmm. And masks, as important as they are uncomfortable after 8 hours. Oddly enough. So those were my big takeaways for like post-COVID-ness. As far as the conference, the two day zeros that happened were lots of fun, and there were really interesting content there. So we had an amazing cloud native eBPF day, and that was the one that I spent a bunch of time on Monday. Yeah.
Okay. Not every day you get a conference with 2 day zeros with it. So
no.
That's a new thing here,
yep.
But it was cool. So you're at Microsoft,
yep.
and you guys are doing some amazing things in the cloud,
yep.
and we're talking to members of our community here at the SUSE Rancher community.
Mm-hmm.
Want to fill us in on some of the great things that you guys are doing at Microsoft?
The fun stuff,
sure. The fun stuff.
And the fun stuff that we're doing with you, because that's always fun. So one of the things that we're doing, of course, we've gone heavily into open source and very heavily into Kubernetes. That's why we're here at KubeCon. And with that shift and with that evolution over the last 5 or 8 years with Satya's leadership, we've gone ahead and made sure that we're listening to our customers as well. And lots of customers want more ways to run Kubernetes in a hybrid mode, so on-prem and off-prem. So one of the big products that we've been working on over the last year and a half is Azure Arc. So that enables you to project your workloads from on-prem into the cloud, as well as being able to run things like the Rancher's distribution of
Kubernetes?
K3, right, there, K3S, that's the one I'm looking for edges. As well as being able to run on-prem the distribution that Rancher has for Kubernetes, which RKS is...
RKE?
RKE, there we go. Thank you. I'm learning my acronyms.
It's okay.
And then we are making sure that we have that work very well together, making sure that Arc allows us to work with the Rancher installations that our customers have.
So giving that single pane of glass where
yep.
they can kind of push workloads in between and still have
yes.
that Rancher look and feel on top of it?
There are 2 options. The one would be the Rancher look and feel, and the other would be the Azure Arc look and feel. So people get to use what they're more familiar with, what they're more interested in. Mm-hmm. And of course, Rancher is such a good visibility and viewpoint for people who are not as familiar with all the knobs and dials of Kubernetes. Because we know that Kubernetes is not simple to set up.
No.
We
like to tell ourselves that, but Rancher does abstract a lot of that and gives
yep.
a beautiful interface for users to adapt yep. and run workloads.
You also have a lot of stuff that's really interesting toward day 2 operations, which I think is fun, especially if you don't have that familiarity that some of the early adopters of Kubernetes did.
Yep, that's absolutely true. Now, with Microsoft's push with Arc and the tie-ins that we do with the Rancher right now, do we have customers adopting us quicker rather than not, or is it still too new?
It's still early to say. I don't have actual numbers from the Azure Arc team in combination with Rancher or anything like that.
Okay.
So still too early to say.
Still too early. So is there anything new coming out after Arc that's going to be interesting in that cloud space that you can kind of maybe tease?
Always working on new and interesting stuff in cloud spaces. We are obviously working on that hybrid story very, very much. There is also a lot of work going into long-term futures, such as confidential computing, making sure that we have not only encrypted content at rest and encrypted content in transport, but also encrypted content when it's being run. When work is happening on data, it's encrypted in memory in this case.
Oh, wow.
So some really, really neat innovations coming toward safety and security. We're also very, very active right now in the OpenSSF, the Open Source Security Foundation, which got relaunched this morning, if I remember correctly.
I believe so.
Yeah, and we are spending a lot of effort in that, trying to make sure that there's a good underpinning of good security across open source broadly.
And we have seen Microsoft over the years go from very closed source to being a very huge proponent of open source. And that's, for open source like us at SUSE, that's a great thing to hear. You guys are adopting more of that mentality and model set going forward. So that's awesome to hear.
I love it. It is why I moved to Microsoft.
It was the reason that signed you up, and you're there for good, or at least for a while, right?
Yes, I'm there for good. I'm there for a while, and I came because the work had started, and it needed more open source credibility from the outside to come in and say, no, I think this is important. I think people are actually making this change. Let's go ahead and support it and try to help the community recognize that we need to be evaluated by today's actions and how we behave, and not necessarily the 10-year-old perspectives that Microsoft once held.
Awesome. Now, if you're here at KubeCon, please stop by the Rancher SUSE booth or Rancher booth.
Or Microsoft, over that way.
Then head over to the Microsoft booth. You can find me, you can find Sarah. Sarah, thank you very much for your time. We do appreciate it. Awesome.
Yeah,
Have a great
conference. You're most
conference.
welcome, Robert. Thank you.